So let's talk about something huge happening in crypto right now. There's this race going on, and I'm talking about the stablecoin race. Now, I know what you're thinking. Stablecoins? Really? That sounds boring. And hey, I get it. We've been talking about stablecoins forever, and a lot of people zone out when the topic comes up. But stick with me here, because I genuinely believe stablecoins might be the most important thing happening in this entire space right now. Here's why this matters so much. If we want crypto to explode from where it's been, let's say around $4 trillion in market cap, all the way up to $40 trillion, stablecoins need to become a massive part of the global financial system. And when that happens, that's when things get really interesting. Because here's the thing, as stablecoins grow and demand skyrockets, they put serious pressure on all the major players in traditional finance. And guess what? They're finally starting to switch things up. Just look at what happened in 2025. We saw major US banks, the big dogs like JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citi, all coming out and saying, hey, we want to launch our own stablecoins too. They watched this market grow, they saw the money being made, and they wanted their piece of the pie. And now, this trend is spreading across the entire world. Check this out. European banks are jumping in too. A consortium of 9 major banks, including names like UniCredit, ING, and SEB, just announced plans for a new euro-backed stablecoin launching next year. 9 banks working together. And this isn't just about competition, it's about Europe wanting digital payment independence, while the US market has been dominating. Get this, Citi is projecting that global stablecoin issuance will hit $1.9 trillion by 2030. Let that sink in for a second. So, what does all this mean? Stablecoins are becoming an absolutely massive part of the global financial system. This isn't just crypto anymore. We're talking about disrupting the entire status quo. Stablecoins are being integrated into mainstream finance as we speak.
This isn't speculation. It's actually happening right now. And who's making it happen? The big banks themselves. They're the ones jumping in with both feet. Now, Europe's really pushing hard for greater control over digital payments, especially as the US, backed by the Trump administration, continues to dominate the market. The European Central Bank is even developing a digital version of the euro, and the UK Treasury says they'll introduce stablecoin legislation before the end of the year. The stablecoin race is heating up fast, people, and here's where it gets even more interesting. Back in September, the World Economic Forum published something fascinating. They talked about how the US Genius Act and the EU's MECA regulations signal that these two massive economies are starting to align their crypto rules. They're converging. This is something I've talked about so many times. We desperately need harmonization when it comes to crypto regulations. We can't have every country doing their own thing with completely different rules. That just doesn't work long term. We need this convergence to happen so the world can finally align on how crypto should be regulated. And get this, we just saw the US and UK form an actual task force to align their approaches on crypto and capital markets. This is big, really big. The pieces are falling into place. Now, we just talked about this task force, right? But here's the crazy part. Who was one of the major players behind it? Casey Kravitz from Ripple. Yes, a Ripple employee played a huge role in this US-UK task force. Just think about that for a second. But wait, there's more. Let's zoom in on the EU for a moment. So we've got the US and UK forming their task force, the US and EU starting to align their crypto rules, and then on September 26th, the EU drops this major post called Preparing for the Future of Payments and Money, the Role of Research and Innovation. This came from a member of the ECB's executive board at a conference literally titled The Future of Payments, CBDC, Digital Assets, and Digital Capital Markets. And here's what they said. In this age of accelerated change, digitalization is redrawing the map of finance and payments. It's imperative to make sure that this transformation translates into genuine innovations that improve people's lives. And here's the kicker. Dialogue between research and policy is not just nice to have. It is a necessity. Central banks around the world are finally making the shift. They're basically saying, hey, we're working to enable settlements of DLT transactions in central bank money next year. next year with a digital euro because they've realized they're falling behind. The message is clear. We need rapid transformation now. There's no more time to sit around and wait. They're locked in and ready to accelerate. The document goes on to explain their modernization efforts, focusing on three main areas for retail payments. First, how research guides them as they adjust to technological changes, showing how central bank money has evolved to bring innovation while maintaining stability. Second, how research helps them understand the way digitalization is transforming both public and private money, as well as the structure of retail payment markets. And third, how research helps them look forward, anticipate risks, and seize opportunities as they shape the future of central bank money. This is literally everything we've been talking about. Stablecoins are shaking up the entire system, and guess who's been part of this conversation since day one? Ripple. Check this out. Christine Lagarde, president of the ECB, posted that it was a pleasure to welcome Paul Atkins, the chairman of the USSEC, at the ECB. We're seeing that harmonization approach in action, connecting the US, the UK, and the EU. And it gets better. Caroline Pham from the CFTC was recently at a conference with an interesting title. It's the Golden Age of America. The US is charting a new future for crypto regulation. And who's tagged as one of the key players? Ripple. The event was called Navigating Global Crypto Regulation and Practice: Institutional Readiness in a Fragmented World. Everyone is preparing for the big moment when we have comprehensive crypto regulations. Look at who's on the panel: the US CFTC, Mission Labs, Ripple's global co-head of policy, and Coinbase's head of APAC policy. Ripple is literally in the middle of every single major discussion happening right now. And speaking of connections, we know Ripple has met with Caroline Pham on multiple occasions. We also know that Christine Lagarde attended a private meeting with Ripple way back in 2016 or 2017. These relationships go deep and go back years. But here's what we really need to focus on: the SEC. Because the SEC and CFTC are now joining forces to ensure they have a harmonized approach to crypto regulations. This was announced on September 5th, with a roundtable happening on the 29th, which is essentially today. And beyond all of that, Christine Lagarde clearly knows about Ripple. There's actually a video from Ripple XRP showing that Ripple is ready for what's coming.
Digital currency is what I'm referring to. I tell you, what we are seeing, and it changes so fast in a matter of 1 year. You know, the crypto assets at large have lost about 85% of their value in a matter of 1 year. What we are seeing at the moment is what Carlos was referring to, which is, development into new technologies that will actually change the way in which intermediation is conducted, eliminate some of the barriers, including the unconscious biases that exist out there. And I think in the banking system at large, in many countries, the difference will not be between those who are disrupted and those who survive, but it will be between those who are cannibalized because they are not seeing it coming and they're not embracing it, and those who self-induce that cannibalization. And I'm using cannibalization on purpose because it's a bit of a striking, horrible word, but it's really what it means. It's you're going to disrupt your business model, you're going to change it, you're going to reduce your cost, you're going to expedite your transactions, and you're going to continue to inspire confidence because you will build that on the basis of an existing backbone, which is your bank and the confidence relationship that you've established with your customers. So that's where I see changes happening now. If you think of Circle and Ripples and all those, that's where they are active and helpful.
Think about Circle and Ripple for a moment. When you consider who these players are and what's happening right now with the ECB making this major shift, telling us exactly what's on the horizon, we're witnessing the dawn of a completely new financial system. And it's all being built on stablecoins and DLT. This brings us right back to what Ripple has always been laser focused on: the Internet of Value. That's their vision for the new financial system, and it's literally unfolding right in front of us. But here's what makes this even crazier: the timing of these announcements. What announcements am I talking about? Well, let's go back to March 5th, 2025. Expanding digital asset adoption across the EU. That's the headline straight from Ripple's website, and it's about modernizing cross-border payments between Portugal and Brazil. Recently, Ripple announced a partnership with Unicambio, their first partnership in Portugal, all focused on modernizing cross-border payments. But here's what makes it significant. This is the latest milestone in Ripple's growing momentum in Europe as the region takes advantage of MiCA implementation and its increasing importance for expanded adoption of digital asset services. And this was just one of many big moves. Look at Ripple's growing presence in Europe. Ripple Custody partnered with major European banks like DZ Bank and BBVA. Then there's Societe Generale adding their new stablecoin to the XRP ledger. Yes, you heard that right. If you didn't know, Societe Generale is still launching EURV on the XRP ledger. We also have Schumann Financial's EURLP, another MiCA-compliant euro stablecoin that was integrated onto the XRP ledger, announced on May 22nd. But there are even more announcements involving Ripple and Europe. The thing is, Europe has always been a key market for Ripple. They've always been laser-focused on this region. And here's where it gets wild. The readiness of Ripple is almost too perfect. It's almost too perfect to be a coincidence. To me, this can't just be luck. Think about the UK and EU situation. The UK forms this task force, and who's involved? Casey Kravitz, a Ripple employee, at the roundtable that essentially formed this task force. That's massive. Then we know the EU is converging with the US on crypto rules, and the EU is going all in on stablecoins. So what happens? On June 5th, 2024, Ripple partners with Clear Junction to enhance UK and EU cross-border payments. And guess who the employee is behind this deal? Casey Kravitz again. It's crazy to me how perfectly aligned everything is around Ripple. Now, I know what you're thinking. When you talk about XRP or you're a big believer in XRP and Ripple, you typically sound a bit crazy, right? People say, "Oh, you think all of this was planned ahead of time? You think it's all connected?" But here's what I mean by it. Sure, you can call us crazy. You can say, "All right, Nick, you're insane if you think all of this is planned out, and Ripple is at the center of it all." But think about it logically for a second. Let's walk through the timeline. Summer of 2023, XRP gets cleared as not a security by Judge Torres. 1 month later, Ripple gets added to the BIS's cross-border payments task force. That's a huge deal. But let's rewind a bit. That was a catalyst that happened after XRP got cleared, so there wasn't massive scrutiny around Ripple anymore. But go back to December 2022, just a few months before that. Guess who's visiting Ripple's offices? Caroline Pham from the CFTC. And here's another thing. Fast forward to December 2022, and Ripple is able to comment on the FSB's global harmonized regulatory frameworks for crypto while still in the middle of a lawsuit. And guess who's on the board of directors at the FSB? Gary Gensler. I mean, guys, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I mention all these connections. That's why when we look at these announcements and the timeline, I just don't believe it's a coincidence that we're suddenly seeing the EU push forward and accelerate their digital asset adoption, and all these discussions around it. Now, they want to get behind stablecoins in a massive way. EU banks are launching stablecoins. It just feels too perfect, doesn't it? It's way too perfect for anyone to say, "Oh, it's just a coincidence." Ripple is just a typical blockchain company. No, they are a major part of the big show here. They're a huge enabler of this new financial system, and they always have been. Remember, they're the ones who actually coined the term Internet of Value. And ever since then, we've been building towards exactly that vision. So with that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future updates on this incredible transformation happening in real time.